You wanna play guitar? Oh, you wanna play guitar? Oh, you got to play guitar. Oh, you got to play guitar. Oh, you wanna play guitar? Oh, you wanna play guitar? Guitar makes it bad, so me. Yeah.
Alright guys, so again there's 6 steps here, so make sure you do go through all the steps because they build on each other. And the last couple of steps is where we start to get really creative and really turn what we're doing into music. And that's where it becomes really important. And at the end, I'll also be doing a big playthrough where you'll be able to see how you should practice this along with the backing track. And then you'll have a backing track as well that you'll be able to play and jam with as well. I'll put a little link to that at the end as well. So let's get started. Now, what I'm going to show you is something that was taught to me by a friend a long time ago. And basically, he was in a band, and I was just on my guitar journey. I just started, and I seen him shred up and down the guitar, and I was totally mind-blown. And I was very curious as to what he was doing and how he was able to play how he played. And he sounded very melodic as well. He was just shredding, improvising, and having a good time. I mean, I eventually got to talk to him and ask him. His answer really surprised me, and I had no idea what he meant. He basically said, it's the D chord. I just visualised the D chord. And it took me a few years to figure out what he meant by that, and of course, it is a little bit more elaborate than just the D chord, but that is the foundation of it. And what he means really is a triad shape that you can visualise along the fretboard, and you can stem off that, you can build off that. And that's what we're going to be looking at today, is firstly looking at triads, the D triad in particular. So we're going to be focusing on 3 chords, the G, the C, and the D. And we're going to be looking at how we can play and solo melodically over those chords. And of course, you can adapt this to any chords. You just need to move the shapes around depending on what you're trying to play over. So if you have a G, a C, and a D, the way we find the D-shaped triad is by finding the root note on the bass string. So this note here on the B is a D. So when I play the D shape, I have a D chord. Now if I had to find the G, that's here, okay? I've got the G note on the 8th fret. So if I play the D shape here, I've got a G. The next chord I want to find is a C, which I have here on the 13th fret. Okay, and that's my C, right? So my 3 chords that I found on the bottom 3 strings, we have the G here, we have C, and we have a D. And that's step number 1. So moving on to step 2. Now, basically what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be using the major scale associated with each chord in the bottom 2 strings. And we're going to be able to create some really cool stuff doing that. So the first exercise looks like this. Firstly, let's just look at what we're doing, right? So again, we're using the D-shaped triad to visualise where each scale is. So if I've got the G here, and I've got my root note here, I can then play the major scale from this position. Now, there's 7 notes in the major scale, so I've got 8, 10, 12, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, if I wanted to play all the notes there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play it like this. I'm going to go 8, 10, 7, 8, 10. And I'm just going to come back up again, rather than go and finish the scale. Alright, 8, 10, 7, 8, 10, 8, 7, 10, 8. And I'm just going to practice that. Now again, it's good to know where this note is on the bass string as well, because maybe I want to bend up to that at some point, which is going to be important. The same on the high E string. I want to know where this note is, so I can bend up to that if I want to do something like that along the line. But anyways, the first exercise is simply this. Okay, and then when I move to my C chord, alright, and then to my D chord, the same thing. And that is step number 2. So step number 3 is really cool. But before we get into that, if you're enjoying yourself, if you're learning, you're having fun, then make sure you let me know. You give it a thumbs up. I'm always really happy to know that the lesson is being enjoyed. And if you're new to the channel, if you're a returning viewer and you like this, then make sure you subscribe, because I get tons of stuff on here already and I upload every single week. And also, I would be very interested to know if you have learned this before, or if this concept is new to you. If it is, let me know in the comments. Again, I'm very curious to know. Anyways, moving on. Step 3 sounds like this. Now, this is really cool because what we're doing is we're playing a sequence pattern which turns the scale from sounding like a scale, because you're playing it in a more complex, sophisticated way. And this does great things for your muscle memory as well, because when you start to play, when you find the scale, you don't play it like a scale anymore, you're playing it in a more complex fashion. And it just sounds a lot cooler, I think. Anyways, what we're playing here, we're doing... Alright, so nice and slow. This is just a descending lick. Okay, so we've got 10, 8, 7, 10. And then we've got to descend again, but start from a note down. This time we're going to come from 8, 7, 10, 8. And then lastly, 7, 10, 8, 7. Okay. And then I'm going to finish off with 10, and then on the root on 8. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat that in each note. So I've got the C, and then I've got the D, then again the G. Alright, and again, practice it nice and slow and then practice speeding it up and getting the muscle memory dialed in. And that is step number 3. Step number 4 is where we start to sound more musical, more melodic, and like we're actually playing a solo and not a scale exercise. And that's because we're using things like hammer-ons and bends. We're adding technique into the equation. So have a little look at this. So again, we're looking over each chord, alright? So again, with the G here, I'm taking the scale, and then I'm figuring out where I can hammer on and where I can bend, and I'm using that to create a lick, alright? So I'm going to give you this basic lick that can be changed, and you can add in a note here and there, and you can kind of make it your own. So I'm going to give you a couple of versions of the same lick in each chord. So the first one... Alright, we've got this. So I'm going 10, 8, hammer on from 7 and pull off to 8. Okay. And then again, I know I've got this note here on the 12 as well, like we looked at the very start. So I can bend up to that note. Okay. I can do it twice if I want. Come back down again. And then I know I've got my root here. And it's always going to sound good when you finish on the root when you're playing over a chord. Alright, and then we do the same thing in the C shape here. You hear that? That's a little bit different, right? So what I'm doing here when I bend up, I know I've got this note here as well, right? So I can bend up and I can grab that with my pinky, bring it back down, and again get that root. Alright, and then I can do the same thing, similar, in the D. But this time, what I'm doing here is a subtle difference. You can hear it. I bend up, I get this, the high E again, and then a slow bend down. So, and back to the root. And again, you can do your own thing with this and mix it up a little bit. But again, just to give you an idea of where you can bend and hammer on. So that is step number 4. So step number 5 is really cool. And this is where you're not playing as much of a lick anymore, but you're playing an arpeggio. And this is a really cool idea and technique to bring into your solos as well. So have a little look at this. So when we're playing an arpeggio, basically, when we're playing a major chord, or a minor chord, we've basically only got 3 notes. We've got the root, the third, and the fifth. Alright, and we can use different inversions of those. And when we play those notes over the chord, they're obviously going to sound good. And this is a cool way to do it. So what we've got for this lick is... Alright, so I'm getting the fifth first, I've got the 10. So 10, 8, 7. And I can keep my finger just on the 7 there. So it's a bit easier to pick. And then the same up at the C. And then the D. And then back to the G again. And that's a great element to add into your solos. So that's step number 5. Step number 6 might seem a little bit contradictory, but I learned this from Steve Vai. And his advice was to learn everything. Alright, learn the technique, learn the skills, practice hard, get that muscle memory dialed in, and then forget it. Forget all about it, and then start playing from here. And what that means is basically yeah, you need to build up that muscle memory. You need to practice. Your fingers need to have the technique under your fingers, and that's something you need to remember, especially as a beginner. That takes time, and you need to repeat until you can get to a point where you can forget it all, and then you can just play and feel. Your fingers already know so much that they can do, and then you can start to express yourself, just like when you're learning to speak. If you learn a new language, for example, I've got a Polish wife-to-be, and if you've ever tried to learn Polish, my God. But it's very difficult, right? And it gets to a long time before you're able to speak fluently. And it doesn't have any effort anymore, right? There's no effort required. You can just speak and express yourself. It's the same thing with guitar. So you learn the technique, and then you can eventually express yourself with it. But what you can do right away is start taking what you've learned and start experimenting, start mixing it up, and then start to let go a little bit. And then you might get something that sounds a little bit like this. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I've had a lot of fun making it, and of course, as promised, I do have a backing track that I'll leave somewhere around here. I'm not really sure where it'll be, but it'll be here. So click on that and just practice and have fun, and let me know how you get on. Okay guys, take it easy, and I'll see you soon with the next lesson.